I don't normally do videos just strictly on Leafs because, again, people will say, "Oh, gotta talk about Leafs." We hear all about the Leafs all the time, but this back-to-back thing is worthy of being looked at in a video. The fact that they don't win on the second half of a back-to-back is affecting whether or not they look like they're going to make the playoffs. And they've got some upcoming back-to-backs. This month, the 15th and 16th, they're at home against Boston before going to Pittsburgh for the second half. The 29th and 30th, they have a home-and-home with Buffalo. The second half is in Buffalo. December 3rd, they're at Philadelphia. Then on the 4th, they're at home against Colorado. And they have two more back-to-backs during December. They make a difference. Now, I've mentioned before when I've talked about the Leafs that I felt that backup goaltending was a problem. And I tore into them when they got rid of McElhinney. I could not understand why they waived McElhinney. And I was told, hey, the backup only plays 20 games a year. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And those games count. This is why when people say, the backup's such... Why do we care about the backup? The backup's not a big deal. And you kind of get the feeling that Dubas sees it this way. Because I can't explain what's going on with Toronto's backups over the last couple of years. And again, I don't want to throw Hutchinson under the bus for a simple reason. Michael Hutchinson, at this stage of his career, we kind of know what he is. He is a goaltender that can fill in. He can play here and there. Seems like a great guy, but is he a guy who should be a regular backup in the NHL? Previous experience would say probably not. That being said, I have done my best when I've done reviews for games that he's started on those back-to-backs by saying, hey, this wasn't really on him. But let's take a look at the numbers. So on the first half of a back-to-back, well, at Columbus, they won 4-1. And I think it's worthy of note that they seem to play better teams on the first half of a better teams on the second half of a back-to-back than the first half. So they won at Columbus. They got 29 shots for, 29 shots against. Anderson posted a save percentage of .966 that night. The second back-to-back that they started, they were at home against Minnesota. They won 4-2. They outshot the opposition 34-29, and Freddie Anderson had a .931 save percentage. Again, Columbus and Minnesota. And with backups, as in Hutchinson, you would normally play him, you would think, against the weaker teams, the teams close to the bottom of the league. That's normally how backups get deployed. That hasn't seemed to be the case with Babcock this season. Again, against Columbus to start a back-to-back, they lost 4-3 in overtime. They were outshot 38-31. Anderson's save percentage in that game was .895. It's the only appearance he's had in the first half of a back-to-back where his save percentage is below .900. Versus San Jose, they won 4-1. They outshot San Jose 27-17. Anderson, .941 save percentage. Versus Philadelphia, the most recent one that started a back-to-back, they lost 3-2 in a shootout. They outshot Philadelphia 40-32, and Anderson a .938 save percentage. So, in the first half of a back-to-back, they're 3-1-1. They have 17 goals for and 11 goals against. Not bad. 161 shots for, 145 shots against. So what happens on the back half of a back-to-back is interesting. So now all of these have Hutchinson in net. They lost against Montreal 6-5 in a shootout. The shots were 42-37 for Montreal. Hutchinson had an .881 save percentage that night. At Washington, they lost 4-3. Montreal and Washington are better teams than Columbus and Minnesota. Just saying. Again, when you're deploying your goaltender, the better goaltender should play against the better team. That's just always been the way it's been done. I'm not trying to say anything poor about a guy who's coached over 700 wins in the NHL, but I'm just saying it's weird. 32 shots apiece. Hutchinson had an .875 save percentage. At Boston, again, a better team than Columbus. They lost 4-2. They were outshot 39-30. Hutchinson had an .897 save percentage that night. He was actually pretty good that night. At Montreal. So again, Montreal instead of San Jose. He loses 5-2. They, right? They're outshot 38-31. Hutchinson puts up an .868 save percentage. At Chicago last night, he loses 5-4. They outshot Chicago 57-34. It's the only one of those 5 games where they outshoot the opposition. Hutchinson, .853 save percentage. So his save percentage looks bad out of that game. And in 5 second games of back-to-backs, they're 0-4-1. They've scored 16 goals and they've allowed 24. They've had 187 shots for, 185 shots against. So is there any player that's better in one than in the other? Matthews, 4 goals, 3 assists in 5 games in the first half. 2 goals, 5 assists in 5 games in the second half. He had 4 assists last night. So that definitely beefs up his numbers. But you know what? His overall numbers, not bad first or second half. Marner, 5 games in the first half, 3 goals, 6 assists. Second half of a back-to-back, he's played 4 games. Missed last night, of course. 2 assists. So yeah, I guess Marner's totals are better in the first than the second half. Tavares has played 3 games on both sides. A goal and 2 assists in the first half. 2 goals and 1 assist in the second half. He tried to take all the blame last night and said, nope, a lot of this is on me. Honestly, he's only played 3. So he's been involved in 60% of their back-to-backs. Riley has played all of them. 5 games in the first half. He has a goal and 7 assists. In the second half, 2 assists in 5 games. Nylander, the first half of the back-to-backs, 2 goals, 3 assists in 5 games. Second half, 3 goals and 1 assist, 4 points in 5 games. So the overall numbers would tell you, yeah, Riley and Marner slump in the second half of back-to-backs mostly. But their numbers are still relatively the same. 16 goals on one side, 17 goals on the other. And your goals against balloons by more than half. Now, it gets pointed out, and it's true, there's more high danger chances against with Hutchinson than there is with Anderson here. And yet, when you look at the strength of competition over here, it's stronger. Which, again, makes it just sort of weird that Hutchinson played where he did. Now, Hutchinson being waived, Kaskisuo coming up, I'm assuming Kaskisuo gets thrown into that fire. And if his numbers struggle like Hutchinson's did, people are going to throw him under the bus, even though, why aren't you starting Hutchinson against San Jose? You only allowed 17 shots. There's no way he's allowing 5 goals there. He gets a win and gets some confidence. Why aren't you starting him against Minnesota? So that's the question mark that I have. And against Boston, don't you want Freddie Anderson in there instead of Hutchinson? Against Montreal, well, Hutchinson had poor numbers that first time. Throw Anderson in there and give Hutchinson that start against San Jose. So, yes, Hutchinson, the numbers aren't good enough. The deployment of the goaltenders, that's also been an issue this year. Now, I want to get into what happened in these 5 games as well. Because before we just say, all right, well, there you go. It's all on Babcock. No. Versus Montreal, they had a 4-1 lead in the third period. And of the goals that tied it up, I know I can remember one that Hutchinson probably should have had. At Washington, they had a 2-0 lead in the first period. Now, Washington's known for coming back. Washington's been fantastic. You can kind of forgive them blowing a lead against Washington. At Boston, it was tied 2-2 after the second. At Montreal, it was tied 2-2 after the second period. At Chicago last night, they were behind 4-1 after the first. So, that's likely where Dubas says, that's it. Hutchinson's got to go. A 53 save percentage for the night. And we outshot him by a lot, and we still lost. If anybody else has noticed, too, 4 of the 5 games on this side are at home. 4 of the 5 on this side are on the road. So is Toronto a better home team than road team? Probably. Shots against would tell you, yes. There's 40 more shots here against them than here. There's 26 more shots for, but a lot of that is because of the 57 they had last night against Chicago. That really skews the numbers greatly. They outshot the Chicago Blackhawks by 23 shots last night. If you take that one out, they've had 21 less shots for than against. So, that's an issue. But again, second half of the back-to-back, you're on the road. Second half of the back-to-back, you're against a better opponent. And you're putting in your backup goaltender. And the difference in save percentage between Freddie Anderson and Michael Hutchinson is big enough that, again, I would think that if you're behind the bench and you're saying, all right, who am I putting in tonight? Well, we're playing San Jose tonight, so I'll put in Hutchinson. I'll give him a chance at home against a team that's lower in the standings to get a win, maybe get his confidence up. And then in the second half of a back-to-back, in Montreal. I'll throw Freddie Anderson into that fire, and we'll see how things turn out for us against Montreal. Do they win those games with Freddie in net? No. Was Freddie given a chance to win those games? No. And for me, if I'm Freddie Anderson, on some level, I'm looking at the standings. I'm looking at who I'm playing against. And I'm thinking, why am I not playing those games against the teams we need to beat if we're going to be higher up in the standings? 9-6-4 means they've lost more than they've won. You take out that 0-4-1, they're 9-2-3 when you take out these games. Now, you can't do that. That's not how it works. But it shows their overall record could definitely be better, and deployment could be part of that. And most Leaf fans will nod and go, yep. And whether they're looking at line combinations that they don't understand, or players that are being benched they don't understand, or defense pairings they don't understand, there are different things going on with the Toronto Maple Leafs that fans can point to. And to me, this is one of them. Why in the world are you playing your backup goaltender against the best teams in the league and having your starter play against some of the lower ranked teams in the NHL? Of these 5 matchups, the only one that looks like they're probably going to make the playoffs right now is Philadelphia. On this side, the only one that looks like they're probably going to miss is Chicago. Montreal right now, they look good. Washington and Boston, probably playoff teams. So it's strange. It's strange how they've been deployed. And so while, yes, other players on the roster are going to try to say, hey, I need to be better. I need to be better. This is on me. And yes, their defensive numbers have slumped. I think deployment's an issue here too. But I would be interested to know what others think about this, because this to me is weird. Because again, you normally play your backup against a weaker team. That's normally the way that works. But I would be interested to know if others agree with me on this, or if I'm way out in left field. Let me know what you guys feel about this, and how nervous you are about the fact that the back-to-back's the second half. Pittsburgh, Buffalo, those are both road games, and then Colorado. Pittsburgh and Colorado, both pretty good, although if Pittsburgh's without Crosby, that weakens them somewhat. I say somewhat because without Malkin, they played very, very well. Of course, Buffalo, we'll see. That's a versus Buffalo to start it, I believe. Nope, it's at Buffalo on the 29th and versus Buffalo on the 30th. And then for people who want to go further ahead than that, December 20th, they're in New York against the Rangers. Then they're at home against the Detroit Red Wings on the 21st. Then coming off the Christmas break, they're in New Jersey on the 27th, and then they're at home against the Rangers on the 28th. So does this mean these numbers are going to get better? And is Kaskasuo going to get thrown in against Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Colorado, while Freddie gets to play against Boston, Buffalo, and Philadelphia? And does that mean things are going to start evening out, or what's going to happen? Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And thanks for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.